Hello, Schulering, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Talking Hospitality by Schulering Hub. Today, our guest is an industry thought leader and strategic advisor for independent hotels and small groups, specializing in technology deployments, revenue optimization, and operational improvements to boost team productivity. Based out in Toronto, Canada, he's most active throughout North America, in the Caribbean, and in Europe. Lately, his focus has grown to include wellness and how hotels can capitalize on what's being called the longevity revolution. Adam Mogelonsky, hi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sorry if I have a little stammer when it comes to your name. Mogelonsky. Did I pronounce right now?
That's it. Yeah, Mogelonsky, long last name of Russian descent. I have a list of nicknames written on my computer, that I've accrued since kindergarten, I guess. And, it's like 25, 30 long. So Mogelonsky or, our company name Hotel Mogul stems from that. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I met you from LinkedIn. You were writing about an event, and it was from Hotel Mogul, right?
Yep.
So I've seen that you cover a lot about technology. You cover a lot about wellness, and there is one buzzword that you speak about that is the metaverse. And I would like to know from you, what's your top 2 metaverse applications that hoteliers should be paying some attention?
Okay, so first off, let's preface the metaverse. The metaverse, don't think of it as anything different entirely. Think about it as an extension of the internet that's going to come along as we develop more bandwidth to handle higher amounts of video and processing power. That's it. It's a journey. It's going to take time. There's a lot of billion-dollar projects around the world to make that happen. But let's think the here and now. So the here and now for the metaverse in 2022-23 is pre-visualization, which is to say you don't need a set of VR glasses or a HoloLens by Microsoft. Those are nice. You can do that. All you need is something called a laptop, 2-dimensional monitor, or a mobile phone. And you try before you buy. So for hotels, pre-visualization, you get a company to come in and map your hotel in 3D, port it over and create a digital twin in 3D space, in the metaverse. Then from there, you make that link accessible to leisure guests or to event planners. And then from there, they go in and they can see your space prior to booking or signing a contract, whatever, and they get comfortable with it. They get more confident in your product. And that means they try before they buy. Like you go into a retail store, you try on clothing, you go to a car dealership, you test drive a car, you go on into the metaverse to try and experience a hotel before you buy. And that's what it does. So on the leisure side, classic case, you have a full service resort on a beach and you have some amenities, be that a spa. You're trying to sell them on cabana rental by the pool, beach reservations, any sort of restaurant that is a marquee destination. You put that into the metaverse, you port it over, and then they can go and tour around and they say, yeah, this is for me. I want to do that. One step further is something called attribute-based selling, ABS, where either at the pre-booking stage or pre-arrival, two different modalities, what you do is you allow them to tour individual guest rooms. So that way you're not simply trying to upsell them from a standard room to a suite or a suite to a premier suite or whatever your room categories are. You're trying to sell them on one specific room. So you say, hey, for the pre-arrival, let's say, you just booked this standard room. Now let's go and you choose your individual room. Do you want it far away from the elevator? Do you want it ocean facing? Do you want it city facing? Do you want it garden facing? That's an extra $20 per night. But it's not just, we're not just telling you what it is, we're showing you what it is. And that helps secure the deal to really get that in place. Now let's take the concept of pre-visualization and think about it at the event planning stage. So the classic case, you take an event that, let's say, has round number 100 attendees, and that's what the event buyer is planning to do. You take your sales team member and they go in and say, okay, let's tour the hotel and map this out in the metaverse and the digital twin to decide where we want to go with this. Okay, so here's what our event space looks like with 100 guests, and we're going to show you some different configurations here. We're going to show you it with rounds, with U-shape, with theater. And now, oh wait, there's also this pre-function space here. And here's what it looks like with cocktail tables and a bar setup. By the way, that bar has a minimum spend of $10,000. But here's what it looks like. Easy, let's throw that in there. Oh, by the way, you have 100 people. Would you also want a room block with that? Here's what it looks like if you can rent out the top 3 floors as a full section buyout, so that way you have access to those floors, common space, and no other guests are allowed on that. That's an additional $25,000. And then the price tag keeps going up and up and up, but people are seeing the product. You're not just telling them what they're getting, they're seeing the project in real time, and that increases booking confidence at the event level to increase total revenue per contract.
That's an amazing way of putting the metaverse to a functionality. And if understood well as well for the hotelier, it's not only the opportunity to have that extra revenue and to show, but it is just a logical evolution of the internet itself. Just as now we rely on photography and 10 years ago we didn't. Now in 10 years time, the hotelier will depend on the technology to show, because the guests will be expecting that from the hotelier. Do you think, am I in the right line of thought here?
Oh, of course, it's always an evolution. So if you look at hotel websites, nowadays, when you arrive on a website, you have the hero image or the feature image. And generally speaking, that's now a video clip that's been properly optimized for website performance and whatever. 10 years ago, that would have been a slider of optimized images, because you wouldn't want to have a video there because the load times weren't there. Be wherever in cyberspace your website is hosted, you didn't want to slow down the user experience by having a video clip. Now we have enough quote unquote bandwidth, whether it's server side or wherever the website is being accessed from, that it's all but mandatory to keep people engaged with a video clip. The metaverse is simply the next stage on top of that. Or, as we should just say, VR, virtual reality. It's just the next stage in that evolution.
You talk a lot about technology for the hotelier. So what would be your top 3 near-term tech priorities for the hotelier, and why is that?
Okay, number 1 is not exactly a silver bullet of a new technology to implement. It is soft technology innovation, which could be otherwise codified as reducing the digital noise. So if you look at how systems are run, a lot of times hotel tech stacks have good data integrations. We're working towards the holy grail of knowing your customer, KYC, all that fun stuff. But at the center of it, you have managers writing emails attached to email chains where they're not directly involved. You have organizing when meetings are going to take place. You have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, video conference, here, and that all adds up to a lack of time to really focus on any individual project. And this is where technology butts up against human DNA. Humans are horrible multitaskers. Our genetics, we are not designed to multitask. So if you're going from meeting, then a 5-minute break to video conference, then a half an hour break, then back to another video conference, by the end of the day, after all that and trying to get to the holy grail of inbox zero, you're drained and you have no time to really think. Humans are best, we're single taskers. We like to have solid chunks of time to really focus on things, away from the social media, away from text messaging, away from the phone, away from the email. So the soft tech innovation that hotels can focus on for 2023 is reducing this noise to allow managers and associates to focus more on complex tasks and to be more guest-facing. So we come in as consultants and we do this. We look not only at where the tech stack has gaps and looking at vendors who can fill those gaps and data connections and all that stuff, but we come in and say, okay, let's look at the Teams function. Why do you have to have 6 managers in on a meeting when only 2 people are talking? Why can't you just have right now recording this video and then that can be digitalized to get minutes, or you just have a quick minutes, which is a quick summary of 3 or 4 points that you need to summarize it and direct tasks. Really increase team productivity by reducing the digital noise. That's number 1. Number 2, as mentioned in number 1, is working towards this knowing your customer, your unified guest profile, rich guest data, whatever you want to call it. And in large part, that comes down to the emergence of customer data platforms. So these systems that can intelligently pipe and clean data into one centralized place. So that way you can make smart decisions based upon that. And really where we're seeing this converge is around customer data platforms, so CDPs, combined with BI, business intelligence, where the whole point of both of these is to get as much data in as possible, but then combine that data with some form of artificial intelligence to lead managers in the right decision. Because even though you're piping in all this data and cleaning and bringing it into one storehouse, it still is too much data to act on. So you gotta properly filter it and identify patterns in a way that is meaningful for managers to act on very quickly. Yeah. Then number 3 is, that's all the back end, the employee-facing side. Number 3 is the guest-facing side, which is you take number 1, streamlining your teams. Number 2, getting all the data into one place. Number 3 is how you're going to act on that to build revenue. And really where we're seeing the revenue side move is away from RevPAR and the siloing of revenues, where rooms revenue is one and then everything else is totally separate, and looking at how to build total revenue, or TRevPAR, revenue per guest, RevPAG, revenue per available guest, all these sorts of terms where the idea is not just maximizing rooms revenue, but understanding that occupancy may be variable, rates may adjust or have to go down with any sort of recession, and trying to identify not only which customers generate the most revenue, so that way you can find those lookalike audiences, to generate more of those customers, but also looking at upselling opportunities and how you're going to go about moving a guest, for example, from just heads and beds, so they only book rooms and then do nothing else, to get them to try out more services. And the underlying thesis here is that the more a guest spends with the hotel overall in a general sense, the more satisfied they are, the more likely they are to recommend your hotel, and the more likely they are to return. So you got to develop a system and a process for moving guests up the ladder, so to speak, of heads and beds to brand advocates or brand enthusiasts.
Great way of putting it, understanding actually the guest journey and leveraging that to create more guest journeys. From your customers, from your clients, what's the biggest challenge that they face to actually implement these three priorities?
Challenge number one, probably of all of them. So challenge number one is the team's productivity, where we want to innovate, we want to move fast with tech. We can come in and we can say like a war general, do this, do that, do this, do that, do that. But the system still revolves around 3-hour weekly e-com meetings, needing buy-in from each individual manager, updating and SOPs, training, team accountability, and all these inefficient processes that are holding a organization back from innovating on a rapid timescale. And really, it just means that projects get delayed on the tech innovation side, and ultimately revenue opportunities are lost.
Productivity, right? And organizing ourselves and using the technology to actually assist instead of getting as another distraction. I would say some hoteliers I've seen high-end technology and actually becoming an extra distraction rather than being a assistance for their efficiency.
Right. I mean, I would be careful with the term destruction, because we're not talking about the F word, let's say, for any associate or manager. What we're talking about is creative construction, which is to say we're helping managers and associates realize the time that they don't have, where we're helping them see, okay, well, we want to free up your time so that way you can focus on all that other stuff that you've been putting aside and then for months or years and haven't had time to look at it, and eventually it just falls off until somebody comes along and says, why didn't we do this 5 years ago? And the answer is because we didn't have time. Well, now you have time. By freeing up the productivity side, you have time to innovate much faster. And as well, you have time to be more guest facing, where you can actually sit down with a guest and say, oh, you're departing today. Here, let's have a coffee and discuss your stay. I mean, that alone, that simple action of being guest facing, where the departure is not simply a transactional conversation where you're at the front desk, you settle your card on file, then you exit. It's saying, okay, yeah, all that's taken care of. Let's sit down, have a coffee, and I want to hear your firsthand feedback of how your stay was. If any manager were to do that with any guest, that is a customer for life. Whether they had a mediocre experience, whether they had highs or lows or whatever, by a manager taking the time to have a 15-minute coffee for a cost basis of whatever that cup of coffee is, plus the manager's time, still customer for life and word of mouth for life. And it's not happening, but those are the opportunities we want to have happen.
That's very good point. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that more people listen to it, get in touch with you to get a better understanding on how increase the productivity.
I have faith.
it's important for the industry itself. Yesterday, I was speaking to another person, nothing about hotels, and she was telling me how she doesn't like to go to hotels because she doesn't like that transaction. She doesn't like the environment. And it's such a pity because it's just an opportunity that the industries letting it slip away, an opportunity to make human connections because we're too busy doing robotic work, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The keyword there, robotic, right? So when you ramp up productivity and then get all these data connections in there, you're, this is a term that is not mine. I'm borrowing it because it's just so good, which is by increasing the no touch, you enable the high touch of hospitality.
That's nice said. And as we are talking about how we can improve productivity, this actually improves probably the person's wellness. And you wrote a smart series of articles about how hotels can leverage good sleep nights and increase actually the wellness of the guests for the long term. And you had a sentence in your articles that I had to write down, that is, if you don't make time for wellness, then you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And would you mind telling our audience a little more about the series of articles and what is the silver tsunami that you speak about?
Oh, okay. So a lot in there. So the title of the series is Going Long for Hotel Longevity. And the term going long is borrowed from investment with equities and stocks, where you go long, which means you're a long-term investor. And then hotel longevity is combining where hotels can stand to benefit from the longevity revolution. And then the longevity revolution is talking about how there's a bunch of converging factors discussing what aging is on a biochemical level. And the emerging science is saying that aging is a disease. And if we treat aging like a disease and we work to prevent it through a variety of tasks that we can do, daily tasks, we thereby can prevent all other diseases that result from aging, whether that is heart disease, dementia, stroke, even sagging skin and graying hair and obesity. These all stem from the idea of aging, which is a banner term for metabolic slowdown or a bunch of other medical terms. So going long for hotel longevity is talking about saying, okay, this is happening. How can hotels get involved to be wellness centers, so that way hotels are at the forefront of helping people prevent them from having to go to the hospital. So hospitals are where you go where you're sick, for sick care. Hotels will be for health care, which is a combination of wellness primary people that are traveling specifically to hotels for wellness-oriented experiences and longevity or anti-aging experiences. Wellness secondary, which is people are already doing these things at home and they want to keep going with it while they travel. You know, they're voting with their wallet for places that can maintain as they're going along. And I would also classify there's wellness tertiary, which is the don't know what you don't know problem, where hotels can inspire people through a variety of messaging and upselling ways to think about this whole wellness paradigm shift that's happening to generate more revenue and to develop brand advocacy. So that's all happening, and it is a very long-term trend because These things take a while to be accepted. There's a lot of established thought which is against it, but it's happening. The pandemic is the biggest catalyst that we've seen yet, where we all sort of got off the collective hamster wheel, and we all sort of said, well, what's going on? And now you see post-pandemic, you see a huge focus on mental health, on alternative forms of healing or medicine, whether that's people taking supplements, eating healthier, particularly because people were at home forced to cook all their own meals, yoga, meditation, cognitive behavioral therapy, the growth of extreme temperature exposure clinics, all these spas that now have infrared saunas and ice baths and cryo tanks. It's happening, and it behooves hotels to get involved, because if they don't, if they just stay heads and beds places, they're at risk of commoditization, which means that they're beholden to market forces, and they can't grow rate above what the market's telling them. And that can work for some hotels. There's always a place for heads and beds, limited service, select service, economy, mid-scale. But if you want to grow, you got to start incorporating these programs. And we're seeing it happen organically with healthier F&B, with better sleep improvements, like just the upgrading of the curtains to be blackout, and eventually upgrading HVACs to be to produce less noise. So it's happening on multiple fronts, and a lot of it is defensive. What this series of articles is talking about is more the offensive. And the third part of that is the silver tsunami, as you mentioned, which is the silver tsunami is a fun way of sort of saying that in advanced economies, so Europe, North America, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. So basically dare I use the term first world. I hate that term. It no longer applies, but let's just say the first people to achieve middle-class countries. So within these countries, what we're noticing is a very long-term trend, which is that birth rates are declining and older people are living longer. So much so that in the near future, 1/3 of people walking around in these countries will be over the age of 65. It's incredible to think about. And the silver tsunami comes in because we're talking about a tsunami, a wave, and silver being gray-haired. So just imagine a future 10 years from now in a place like a really advanced economy like Denmark or Japan, where 1/3 of people walking around are over the age of 65. What does that mean in terms of reorienting your marketing, your brand strategy, your amenity offerings around targeting this group that have very different travel needs than somebody who's younger? So we have a bunch of converging trends. We have the longevity revolution that is extending the lives of people. And again, primarily in the upper middle class and the upper class, because that's just how technology works. It always starts, the early adopters are always wealthier, then through economies of scale, it moves downhill. That's the way it's existed for the past 2,000 years. That's not changing. Combined with people living older, and they still want to travel. So how do you capitalize on all these trends mixing together in various ways? And that's really what the column is about. We have, about 9 under the hood thus far. We're going to keep going for another 100, let's say, because this is a huge macro trend that's going to take place and already is taking place under the hood. And it's going to be affecting us all for the next 20 years in various ways.
One thing about this longevity revolution, you mentioned about the loyalty escape velocity. What would that be?
Another term here to throw in. So loyalty escape velocity is a play on words, where you have something called escape velocity, which is the speed a rocket ship needs to attain in order to break free of Earth's gravity, to basically escape the well of gravity and get out into weightlessness of near space. So that's term number one. Then a person much more intelligent than myself, Ray Kurzweil, when he first talked about the coming boon of wellness and longevity and humans living longer than the traditional mortality rate of 85 to 120 years old, he coined the term longevity escape velocity, which describes at a certain point in the future, medicine and medical knowledge is going to progress to the point where we can extend human life indefinitely. And his plan and a lot of other people's plan is simply to make it to that point, both by doing certain things today and also by having enough financial resources to be able to afford these cutting edge medical techniques that are going to emerge in the coming decades. So longevity escape velocity. Then from there, loyalty escape velocity simply means that as people get older and are still young while getting older, that means that your customer lifetime value increases exponentially, because normally you think, okay, a customer lifetime value is based on, in some way, shape, or form, the actuarial mortality table, which predicts that your customers past the age of retirement are going to start dropping off because they're relying on retirement income and they're traveling less for medical reasons, insurance or otherwise. This is saying, no, this isn't the case. As people get older, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to retire. So they're going to have more disposable income. It also means they're not necessarily going to get iller or more frail, which means they're going to keep traveling like they do in their middle ages. And how that reflects in loyalty is that the work you do today to endear yourself to people of this mindset simply means that instead of getting 20 years of payback from that loyalty, the work you put in today, you could get 50 or 60 years. So that's really where the term loyalty escape velocity comes from. And the bottom line for brands is you got to work on your loyalty programs, and you really got to work to endear yourselves today to these people who are going to be living longer and longer and longer and are going to want to keep revisiting you, because it just means that the more work you put in today, the less you have to market and spend a lot of money on advertising to find new customers in the future.
One of the things in your article that I really like, one of the articles was about some perks that the hotelier can start really now, like leaning, like teas, and starting that journey into wellness. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that hacks and how the hotelier can start now getting into from wellness for their guests?
Right. So part of the whole thing with wellness, talking about silver tsunami, loyalty escape velocity, all that is 20 years out, let's say. I mean, some is shorter, some is longer, whatever. Hotels and hotel managers are incentivized on a quarterly P&L. Unless wellness is already part of the core brand DNA and they see the light to this long-term payout and how it can build over time. Speaking on any consulting assignment with hoteliers, they love talking about it, but that's great. Show me the money that we can get in the next 4 quarters. And we have to be conscious of that because hotels are still on a very tight budget and there isn't a lot of leeway room in that. So really what we say is, okay, we can start small and we can start in one direction that fits your brand. And part of the whole discussion here is we want to show the blessing and the curse of wellness, which is to say there's a lot of opportunities under the banner of wellness, which means that any hotel in any category can get involved. But at the same time, that's a curse, because lots of different opportunities means that it's hard for hotels to figure out the best place to start. So we say, start small and start where we know your guests are going to benefit. So some people like spa. Some people don't have time to work out while they travel. Some people don't really like yoga or haven't really had much exposure to it, so they don't know the benefits of it, whatever. But we can guarantee two things based on what humans are. Everyone sleeps and everyone eats. So start there. So on the eating side, we've mentioned F&B. We're starting to see all these superfoods emerge and various biohacking foods that you can incorporate and eat to live healthier. That's something that people are doing at home. You know, like there's lots of different things we can go into. We can have a whole separate hour on all the various foods that people should be eating. But we're starting to see these slowly creep into the menu. A lot more dairy-free, gluten-free, plant-based options, fish versus red meat, less deep-fried foods, more oven-baked or raw foods, things like that. It's happening slowly. The question we always ask is, how are you measuring this? So how do you know if somebody puts in a special request to have a certain item removed from the menu? How are you quantifying that to see if it's a common request or just some crazy person like myself who does weird things? So that's step number one, is the food side. You mentioned herbal teas. So herbal teas is something you drink, but a lot of these herbal teas, if you were to drill down to the individual ingredient components, a lot of them extend life in various ways through chronic consumption, and they also promote better sleep. So a lot of the herbal teas will have relaxing elements like chamomile, lavender, passion flower, citrus peel, or a lot of other dandelion roots or other various astringents that will help to promote good blood flow and relax you. You put these in the room as an amenity to show that you care about people getting a good sleep. That's great. You just put them in the room. How are you monitoring within your procurement system and inventory how often they're being used? Are you advertising them or marketing them, telling guests about them so that way they know they're there in the room? Or you could go a little bit more elaborate and make it an on-demand tea service where you could have through your hotel app, built into the room service ordering system or the operations platform to order these teas on demand. Then you got to think the staffing side, where if people are ordering these teas around bedtime, whether that's 9 p.m. through till midnight or into the wee hours, you might not have necessarily a lot of staff on hand, runners or front desk agents to run that up. So now we got to talk about the dawn of hotel robots. And that's a little bit more far-fetched, but there are robot companies you can recruit right now in 2022-23 that can do this for you, that will work 24/7 and deliver these with a seamless integration to your operations platform. So we're using herbal teas as a very small case to show something that can be low-cost implementation, but still requires a lot of data connections and staff retraining in order to make it happen, to sort of both test the waters, but also quantify the waters in order to make this as labor light a situation as possible for further wellness enhancements.
I love health. At home, we do drink herbal teas before sleep. We have lavender spray at home. And it's the quantifying is very important for the hotelier here. And I hope that our audience is getting that message, because the quantifying, the measurement, is it working or not for your property? I think that's the point, that they should be testing things, but measuring if it's working or not for the property. And now that we're talking about the guest wellness, the biggest crisis we're going through now is in the human resources for the hotels. How does employee or collaborators' wellness impact the business as well?
Oh, so employee wellness, maybe even that can precede guest wellness, where guest wellness is more the potential, but how can you add on new amenities if you have no staff, or if your staff is constantly turning over? So the crisis that hotels are having right now is fulfilling the service promise. And if you're having problems turning over rooms and opening them up for resale, how can you worry about spa, room service delivery, or even keeping the restaurant open? So in a lot of ways, employee retention is the name of the game right now. And going back to this whole idea of the silver tsunami, just think about that, where 1/3 of people over the age of 6 will be over the age of 65 walking around. So what we're seeing now with declining birth rates and more old people, even though I don't like that term old, more people of advanced age, is that we are seeing a shrinking of the working age population. And that means less employees going around to be available to work in hotels. So it's not a pandemic problem. The pandemic was only the catalyst. The labor crisis in hotels is going to last for the next 20 years. Absorb that, deal with it. Okay? And how you deal with it is you don't think in terms of, we just got to find ways to stay competitive on wages and all that. What we're seeing is wages are becoming a bit of an inflationary arms race, where if all you're doing is you're offering 25 cents above the hotel down the street, but you aren't endearing yourself to the employees, that hotel down the street will eventually raise their wages by 50 cents over your 25 cents. And now employees will jump ship because you aren't giving them a emotional reason to stay with your hotel. So where employee wellness comes in is it's all about generating that sense of belonging and that emotional connection to the property as a family unit. So that way you, your wage is, let's say, just round number, $20 an hour. And the other place across the street tries to poach your employees saying, we'll give you $22 an hour. And the people in your hotel say, no, I'm staying with you because my managers love me. Not just like me or treat me well, they love me. Okay, that's how far we got to go with this in order to resist these inflationary wage arms races. So employee wellness, we see that in mental wellness, where we have people come on hand and they do seminars, down to just the way managers talk to employees and really say, I noticed your kid had a birthday last week. How'd that go? Just asking employees about their families and getting together for team lunches and good staff lunches. So we talk about F&B on the guest side, where guests are eating healthier. Staff lunches have to move in hand with that, because we also know that as people eat healthier, they are happier and they take less sick days or less short-term disability leave or short-term paid time off. So as you feed employees better, you actually get more productivity out of them and you get more retention. And then we can go a little bit further and say, okay, we're going to bring in a stretching coach once a week or a yoga instructor once a week to do team stretches, which is going to help to stave off RSIs, repetitive strain injuries, which again will boost morale. Or we're going to have off-site programs where we're going to do team building activities off-site. Or we're going to do a little bit of competition. And one of the pods that does best this month will have a one free spa treatment down at the spa. There's lots of ways you can do it to incentivize employees in a non-wage capacity to stay with the hotel. And we also see this reflected on the managerial level, where it's not just about inflationary wage control, which is a problem that hotels can see. There's the problem hotels don't see, which is the Great Resignation, where managers are jumping ship to try and find a better salary. Or we see accelerated retirements because there were a lot of retirements during COVID because our industry skews old. So who's going to be replacing those managers, and how can we prevent managerial churn or turnover to keep our teams intact and therefore keep the engine moving along at a breakneck pace, so that we can innovate and we're not stifled by recruiting another manager, onboarding a new manager, and then all that lost decision-making along the way. So in my mind, employee wellness precedes guest wellness in a lot of ways.
The cultural transformation of the business, right? Not only give better morale, as you mentioned, and it will affect actually the bottom line in the end of the day with more productivity and probably even better reviews. Because if the collaborators are happier, they are treating your guests better, and it has a whole snowball effect into the business. And in the end of the day, that's what we should aim for.
Yeah, I mean, just a high-tech, low-tech sort of application from what you mentioned. You talk about hotel reviews. You can install a review platform right now that does semantic analysis on those reviews. And you can tell that semantic engine to say, whenever they mention housekeeping in a positive light, notify a manager. Okay? That's high tech. The low tech is that manager gets the notification, finds the review, prints it out, physically prints it out, puts it in the staff room, and says above it, "I'm proud of you." And then every single housekeeper that goes into that room sees that, and that is, they see the good job they've done. They feel rewarded, and they also feel like the team cares about them and values their work. That is a perfect application of why you need a good review platform right now and how to use it in a non-tech manner to improve employee retention.
That's beautifully said. And I hope that, again, fingers crossed, that message is getting across. We are working on a cultural transformation in our business here, and it's a long term. It's not straight away. It's not a 1 month. So for the leaders that are listening to today, so talk to Adam. He knows what he's talking about. So talk to him. Talk to him. As we talking about all this employment engagement and long-term planning, how about loyalty? Because loyalty is going through a transformation, I believe, as well, with the inclusion of NFTs. So for the hoteliers, could you explain a little bit maybe what is NFTs and how that can play in the loyalty for the hotel?
Right. So NFT stands for non-fungible token. And therein lies the problem with the term in terms of understanding it, because no one really uses the term fungible, and no one really uses the word token in common parlance. So token is a coin or a symbol for representing value. And, technically the money in your pocket, they used to be gold coins and silver coins. Now they've been clipped, as they say. And They are tokens of value. Same thing with the physical cash in your wallet is a representation, a symbol, a token of value that is backed by the government, whether that government is a nation, a body like the EU or ECB, or here in North America, the Canadian government, the US government, and the Federal Reserve. That's what token is. Fungible simply means interchangeable. So you have NFT, which means a non-interchangeable representation of value. So it is a unique identifier of something else, and that uniqueness is preserved by blockchain technology, which is a hyperledger where every single transaction is recorded relative to the previous transaction using what's called algorithmic hashing, which is advanced mathematics to ensure that blockchain is never broken. So that is what an NFT is. And really how it applies to loyalty is the next generation of loyalty, whereby as NFTs are understood and more readily used in a convenient manner, you can then do some interesting things with these NFTs, where right now loyalty is governed by points and redemption of those points with a lot of middle management in between. Essentially what NFTs can do is they can transform that middle management, that administration, and put it into a smart contract. So a system of computer code that can then take it and can tell it what to do with that NFT. So the NFT, what you see right now, the hype circuit, is the little JPEG that people were flaunting around. Bored apes, mutant apes, crypto bats, all those little things are regular people like, huh? Why is this worth $1 million? The answer is it isn't, as is being revealed by the bubble bursting, which is very entertaining to watch, and we can get into that. But really what we're talking about is that little JPEG is the representation, the visual identifier for the code that underlies the NFT. And what that code allows the NFT owner to do. So in a hotel sense, you could have an NFT, they purchase it, they get a nice little JPEG, and that NFT could say, all right, you own this, you're going to get exclusive access to same-day upgrades, to first dibs on pool cabana at a reduced rate. You could have a NFT exclusive private lounge at select locations. You can have access to a hotel that we've built in the metaverse. You can get private shuttles to and from the airport. You can get an exclusive drink or a free drink every time you arrive at the restaurant. The sky's the limit. And because you're using smart contracts to govern all this, this is all composable, as they say, and you can do it with relatively easy administration and reducing the middle management. Another key benefit therein is you can code into the smart contract reseller fees or royalty fees, whereby that unique identifier, that NFT, can be resold on a secondary market by its current owner to a new owner. And every time it's resold, that smart contract can say, all right, whatever the value it's sold for, hotel gets 5% of net sale.
It's creating a whole new economy.
Yeah, it's the term there is marketability. Marketability, not as in marketing, which is advertising and promotions, but marketability, which is bringing buyers and sellers together. And if you look at the long course of history of financial markets, as we can really codify accurately since the formation of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, throughout history, whenever you can increase the ability for buyers and sellers to come together, you increase the value of the underlying good being sold by increasing the liquidity. So Dutch Stock Exchange, you saw it with even a lot of the modern finances that started in the 80s, culminating in the Great Recession 12 years ago. And now you're seeing with crypto and NFTs, where yes, there is speculation that happens when these new markets form, but the underlying value increases whenever you can bring buyers and sellers together.
Yes, I'm being, now that you said, it just clicked something about this new economy, and basically you are giving your guests the ability to resell your property and create sales agents that are actually advocates of your brand at the same time, and you start killing the middleman in the process, like the OTAs that it's just link that, because that's something that would be possible.
Yeah, I mean, we can go even further into next generation loyalty with NFTs, and you say, okay, well, right now, I purchase a package from a hotel, and it's a one-to-one contract. In order to get out of that for whatever reason, I have to either use their cancellation policy, which has been fairly lenient since from the pandemic, but that might start to close. But it's a one-way contract. You're negotiating one-off with the hotel. Where NFTs can come in with this marketability and this secondary marketplace is you have increased confidence that you can resell it to whomever is out there on the secondary marketplace. And it opens up loyalty for the little guys. So if you look at the growth of the big loyalty programs, so the big conglomerates, the Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Accor, the big guys, where you have your Marriott points, and they were built upon the growth of corporate travel in the latter half of the 20th century. And you have a lot of corporate road warriors who, by whatever reason, they become a Marriott person or a Hilton person, and then they spend their retirement redeeming those points and using them up around the world. Great idea. But the next generation is not so loyal. They have a lot of options. They also have this thing that they like to use called Airbnb, which is a whole new thing. So imagine you're a single hotel and you want to generate a loyalty program amongst an international group of guests. It's not easy, because your loyalty points are only redeemable at that single hotel or that small group of limited locations throughout the world. But if you put that onto a blockchain or Web3 application, now you can allow for the reselling of those points to other guests. So wherever those guests are going to come from. The traditional point of view is to say, well, all that means is that people are going to be selling their points to others, and then we're going to have less redemption and less money on our books in AR, because people are just going to be selling our points away. Yes, that is true. In an open marketplace, people do sell, but they also buy. So eventually, people will sell small hotels loyalty points on the open market with a reseller fee to the hotel, so they're getting something. But at the end of every sale, there has to be a buyer, and that buyer will then come to your hotel. So by giving the peace of mind of the ability to resell those loyalty points, you're then increasing the underlying value, because whoever's doing the initial purchase will then have that peace of mind, that guarantee that they can resell them. And then you also have buyers who are buying them and redeeming them.
Adam Mogelonsky, that's it, all right. Dad, you have a fantastic mind. Thank you very much for the knowledge you shared with us today was an amazing chat. I'm quite inspired by that. And how can our audience, how can hoteliers find you and talk to you, hire you?
So our website has a great repository of all articles that we write. That is hotelmogel.com. So Mogel, MOGEL.com. And if you want to email me, my first name's Adam, so it's adam@hotelmogel.com, and we'll chat.
When podcast is out, the links will be there. Will be easy to connect with you. Maybe people can try to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. It was a pleasure to talk to you. It was a pleasure to have you here in the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.